Alright, welcome to lesson 12-2. Remember that chapter 12 is all about data analysis. So this section we're going to learn how to use a frequency table, a line plot, and a histogram. These three are all really similar, really related to each other. So we're going to be using these three types of tables or plots in order to display different sets of data. So for example, if you were taking a survey of your classmates' favorite colors, you could, say, make a list of colors, like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. We'll just go with the basics here. So this is our our color choice, right? And as you're taking your survey, you could take a tally of how many times as you walked around the room, different students said they liked a color. So say as you walked around, someone said, "Oh, I like red. Oh, I like yellow. Oh, I like yellow too." You would go around and take a tally, and then you're going to display the number or the frequency by adding that all up. So this is an example of a frequency table. You have like your color that we're looking at that's our data type, is colors. We take a tally as we go around the room, asking people what their favorite color is, and then we'll mark the frequency. So the frequency of red was 1, 0, orange had 0, yellow had 2, green, blue, and purple had 0 in this example. So we're looking at just the frequency of a type of data occurring. I'm going to do another example where we have a list of numbers. Alright, so I wrote up a list that's our, so hold on, this is example 1. So this is our data over here. This is the different numbers. It's the numbers rolled when a dice was rolled, or when a cube was rolled 20 different times. So I have 20 different numbers. Right, so I have 20 different numbers in this data table. Now I'm going to display the frequency, or display this data in terms of how many times did each number show up. That would be the frequency, how often it showed up. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a frequency table. And I'm going to put 3 different columns. I'm going to have the different numbers. I'm going to make a tally, and then I'm going to display the frequency once I count my tallies. So we have numbers 1 through 6, where the numbers rolled. I'm going to go through and look at my data table, tally it all up. So I have 5, 2, 5, 4, 1, 6, 5, 2, 5, 1, 3, 6, 1, 3, 3, let's fix that, 4, 5, 3, 5, 3, 4. Alright, so now I'm going to add these up. So my frequency for the number 1, it appeared 3 different times, 2 appeared twice, 3 appeared 4 times, 4 appeared 3 times, 5 was rolled 6 times, and 6 was rolled 2 times. Okay, so there's my frequency. This tells me how often each of these different numbers was rolled. I can also display this, now that I have a frequency table done, I can also display this in terms of a line plot. So I'm going to make a line plot over here. a line plot, you take and you make like a number line. I'm going to label my different numbers on it. I have 1 through 6. And a line plot is simply you make an X above the number for each time. It's kind of like a tally. You display the data with an X marks above the number line. So 1 appears 3 different times according to my frequency chart. So I'm going to mark 3 X's above the number 1. 2 occurs 2 times, so I'm going to mark 2 X's for 2. 3 is 4 times, so it gets 4 X's. 4 is 3 times, so it gets 3 X's. 5 occurs 6 times. And then 6 occurs 2 times. Right, so you look at your frequency chart that you've made, or frequency table you've made, and you can display that data with like X marks above a number line in order to make a line plot. It's just a more visual or graphic representation of your frequency table. Alright, I'm going to have you do an example now. Alright, so you have a data table given, and you need to take this data table and make a frequency table, and then go ahead and graphically represent it with a line plot. Pause the video. Once you've done that, you can hit play and see the answer. Alright, you should have made a frequency table listing the numbers of 10 through 15, as those are all your different data numbers. You should have taken a tally of the occurrence of each different numbers, and then added up your tallies to get the frequency. So 10 has a frequency of 5, 11 has a frequency of 3, then 2, 2, 1, and 2. Now for your line plot, you should have marked 5 X's above 10, 3 for 11, 2 for 12, 2 for 13, 1 for 14, and 2 for 15. So you can visually really easily just glance and see that 10 occurred the most often, 14 occurred the least often. It's just another way to see the data come to life. Alright, now we're going to move on to make histograms. Histograms show the frequencies of the data as a graph, of a set of data as a graph. So it's another sort of graphic representation. And in this case, the data is typically grouped into an interval. That means you're not just doing one number, but you're doing a range of numbers. And the intervals are of equal size, and they do not overlap. And then your graph, it's a graph, I guess there's a key point there. It's going to be a bar graph, and the height of each bar is going to show the frequency of the data in a given interval. So we're going to do an example together, so you can see what this looks like. So to make a histogram, first we need a set of data. In this case, our data is hours of battery life. The numbers in our set of data, we have 9, 18, 12, 23, 14, 10, 10, 14, 15, 22, 10, and 11. Alright, so there's our data set. It shows the results of testing 12 different batteries of the same type, telling us how many hours each different battery lasted. So we're going to step 1, decide on our interval. I'm going to choose an interval size. So our data, 9 is the smallest number, and the largest number looks like it is 23. So 9 and 23 is our range. 9 to 23 hours. So possible interval choice, maybe we could choose like every 4 hours. If we were to do every 4 hours, step 2 is to make a frequency table. So our frequency diagram, we'll put our hours, our number of hours that the battery lasted, our tally, and then our frequency. Okay, so we're going to use here our tally. So for the hours, we're going to put, for the first 4 hours would be 9 to 12, then 13 to 16, 17 to 20, and 21 to 24. That goes one number above our what our data set is, but it includes, and it doesn't overlap with any of the other intervals, so that's fine. So that all of our data is represented in these different intervals. So we're going to go through and tally up how many different numbers appear in 9 to 12 range. So 9, 12, 14's in the 13 to 16 range, 10, 15, 10, 18 is in our 17 to 20, 23, 10, 14, 22, and 11. Alright, so we'll add these up. We have 6 for our 9 to 12 hour battery range, 3 for 13 to 16, 1 for 17 to 20, and 2 for 21 to 24. Alright, step 3, we're going to make our histogram now. So our histogram, we're going to just make a graph. So it'll have 2 axes. Just a single quadrant graph. Oops. And so we're going to, well, first of all, let's write our title. This is going to represent the hours of battery life. Let's label our axes. Let's do the hours on the x-axis, how many hours it lasts, and then the frequency on the y-axis. Alright, so we need to label it in terms of, our frequency goes 0 to 6. Our hours, we did in ranges, so we need to write the ranges on here, 9 to 12, 13 to 16, 17 to 20, 21 to 24. This is going to be a bar graph, so I'm going to make columns. Alright, and then you can go ahead and fill that data in. For 9 to 12 we have up to 6. For 13 to 16 you have 3. Last 3 hours. Or the frequency is 3. For 17 to 20 our frequency is 1. 21 to 24 our frequency is 2. Alright, so that's all a histogram is. This visual representation, you're making a graph of your frequency and what your data set is. So you're using an interval of your data set, and then you're setting those intervals, figuring out what the frequency of those intervals is, and then just graphically representing it using a bar graph. I'm going to have you do an example on your own now to test to see if you can do it. So again, you're going to be practicing a frequency diagram, frequency table, but then you're also going to go ahead and extend and make a histogram. So I'm going to have you use that same data set and make a histogram. Oops. Make a histogram. Instead of doing 4-hour intervals, use 3-hour intervals. Okay, so you're going to need to make a new frequency table and make a new histogram, but you're going to be still displaying hours of battery life. You're still looking at that same set of data. So go ahead, pause the video, use that same set of data from the previous page, and use 3-hour intervals to display this information. Alright, when you set your frequency or your hour intervals into 3-hour intervals instead of 4-hour intervals, you should have found that the 9 to 11 hour range has a frequency of 5, 12 to 14 is a frequency of 3, 15 to 17, 1, 18 to 21, and 21 to 23 has 2. Then you should have labeled a bar graph with hours of battery life, had a frequency as your y-axis, hours as your x-axis, and labeled your hours axis in terms of hours 9 to 11, 12 to 14, 15 to 17, 18 to 20, and 21 to 23. You should have marked up to 5 hours for the 9 to 11 hour range, up to 3 for 12 to 14, 1 for 15 to 17, as well as 18 to 20, and then 2 for 21 to 23. So it's the same information, but it's displayed in a slightly different way. We have a longer or greater range than we did before. So we have one more interval on our x-axis, one more time interval, because we broke it up into smaller chunks of 3 hours instead of 4 hours. Alright, so that's it for this lesson. You're just marking the frequency. You can do line plots, you can do histograms as ways of illustrating visually, like how often does a certain number or does a certain event occur. Alright, your in-class work is on page 6 to 14 in your textbook. I want you to do numbers 6, 9, 10, and 14. Number 14 asks you to look back at number 6. It's important you go in order. And then for homework, you're going to do your practice book page, workbook page 12-1, and I want you to go ahead and do the guided problem solving page on the back, in addition to just the front practice problems. Alright, go ahead and get started.